Hello, welcome to World Learning. I'm sitting here, my name is Radmila Popovic, and I'm one of the course designers and part of World Learning. And I'm sitting here with my colleague, Herman Gomez, who's a teacher training specialist, right?
Yes.
Also working with World Learning. And here we have our practice talking about different articles or things that we have read or heard. And I found an interesting article, Teaching Grammar Through Community Issues. And I know that Herman did quite a lot of work in Guatemala. Yeah. So, have you ever taught grammar through community issues, Herman?
Yes, I actually had a chance to work grammar through different community issues, and one specific example that comes to mind is one time when I had to we had to work with an article. It was a reading passage actually on working from home, telecommuting as it was called back a few years ago, and I remember that particular reading was really interesting. Simply because we also had that same problem in Guatemala City. I was teaching a lot of adult learners, professional adult learners, who would usually have to drive to work and back home, and it would take them about from 3 to 4 hours to get home and to get to work. And so one of the solutions that we were talking about was for companies to actually give the chance for a lot of their employees to work from home. And I had a lesson based on the reading, and then a post conversation about the possible benefits and also the cons of working from home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that was back in the days when telecommuting wasn't such a frequent
That's right.
phenomenon,
yes, yeah.
right?
And we're talking about maybe like 15 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
And still in a lot of big cities, there are many companies, especially where I was living, that are not really or haven't really, been sold into that idea of allowing employees to work from home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, and where does grammar come in? Did you just talk about it? Did you teach grammar?
Well, one of the interesting things here is that the issue was so relevant to the community that they had a lot of opinions, and in the conversation after the reading and thinking, how would this help you? Think about it. What would it be like if you were able to work from home? We actually had a really great opportunity to work the second conditional. So a lot of them said things, for example, like, if I could work from home, I would be able to spend more time with my family because I wouldn't need to drive in for 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
If my company allowed me to work from home, etc. So we did work a little bit we were actually working in the unit with the second conditional, and I think that prompted a very sort of natural context in which the students were able to use what they had learned in the grammar and highlighting that part.
Was that article on telecommuting in the course book you were using?
Actually, it was not. I had to sort of supplement it from another book that I had. Yeah.
So in a way, you had to source, right?
I had to source, yeah.
So you supplemented. Did you have to reject something from the
I actually rejected the article that they had in the book. The article they had in the book was about the workplace environment, and it really wasn't really interesting to the students. And the other article that I had available in the unit had to do with sports, and they really weren't interested in that also. So.
Mm-hmm. So what are the benefits of such an approach? So you sourced your course book, and you focused on the grammar point that naturally evolved out of the article you selected.
I think the big benefits, number one, is that through sourcing, I actually prompted learning that was meaningful for my students and prompted a conversation and a topic that had great relevance to their daily life. And at the same time, sourcing allowed me to actually get them to use the grammar point in this case in context, and it also I met the objectives of the unit. Sort of like the skeletal objectives were met through a different avenue, but something that was more interesting to them.
Mm-hmm. Very important and very relevant. So it's grammar in a community-oriented English language teaching.
That's right.
More relevant for students.
Yeah. And have you done something similar to that?
Yes, I've done something similar. Where I come from Belgrade, Serbia, and I taught at Belgrade University, and in the 1990s when we were going through disturbance, a lot of turbulences and very insecure times, when Serbia had inflation of 2% per hour those times. So it was working with these imported course books didn't mean much. So I vividly remember a lesson on shopping at Harrods. And the slogan was, you can buy everything from the needle to an elephant, provided that you can persuade the shop owner that you will be a good elephant minder. And in those days when these shops were empty, we couldn't buy practically nothing.
It's practically the opposite,
yeah,
right?
opposite. So I didn't feel like we could address that. Use these. This is just an extreme example. When, say, a course book printed in the UK or USA with certain topics, these topics are not relevant to the students you're working with. These students, my students were English majors, and they wanted to talk about what was around them. But at the same time, I wanted them to talk about, again, learn more about American culture. I selected Walt Whitman's poem, I Hear America Singing. For me, that's really something that represents America in Walt Whitman's time, and students can learn a lot about it. So we read the poem, discussed it, and after that I focused their attention on the pattern verbs of perception plus ing. I hear America.
Oh, that's a nice connection.
Ing. Yeah, I hear America singing, or I hear. And I asked them to write what they at that time could see and hear in Serbia.
Okay.
Practicing. So it was a kind of a guided practice.
Okay.
But guided practice, I say guided practice because I gave them a pattern, which they had, but at the same time a very creative one. And they embraced this opportunity and expressed their different views on the current political situation.
So you practically sourced it.
Yeah, sourced that. I sourced that. So I can just. I have this. This was really moving. We came up with a poem, and something like, I hear Serbia crying for financial help.
Wow.
I hear Serbia singing folk songs about fur coats, diamonds, and Ferraris. I hear Serbia boasting about its glorious past. I hear Serbia dread to think about its future.
That's wonderful.
So
well scaffolded too. You gave them time to write their own sentences, and it's in context.
It's in context, and this really it was a powerful lesson, and I still remember it.
You have to let me steal it sometime.
Yes, of course. So, this is I think that if we really think about our context and look at our students and think about their needs and what they want to express. In your case, it was they wanted to talk about their own situation.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, and I actually it also helped them, as you mentioned, giving them time to write what would it be like if they could work from home. Right?
So it's grammar embedded. They're not focused on grammar. They're focused on
the topic.
But they practice grammar a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Herman.
Thank you.